Number 1. The sanitation nightmare. There are things more terrifying than darkness and evil spirits, and that is living in a place where every glass of water, every meal, and every step outside carries the risk of disease. This is the reality in Bangladesh, where this occurs every day. Bangladesh is one of the countries with the densest river systems in the world, boasting over 700 rivers of various sizes crisscrossing its territory. At first glance, this might seem like an advantage in terms of water resources. However, the country has a very low topography, with many areas just a few meters above sea level, making it extremely difficult for wastewater, household waste, and pollutants to escape. When heavy rains or floods occur, all of this waste mixes together and spreads throughout residential areas. The problem becomes even more serious when viewed in the context of the population. Bangladesh covers an area of only about 149,000 square kilometers, smaller than the state of Illinois in the US. Yet its population exceeds that of both Russia and Japan combined. The population density is so high that even in a slum in Dhaka, you can find thousands of people living crowded together in a space that could only accommodate a few hundred. With such density, waste and sewage management systems are nearly impossible to maintain. In many impoverished neighborhoods, sewage systems are placed right at the front of homes. Household wastewater, rainwater, and industrial waste flow together in a thick, foul-smelling stream. Children walk barefoot through these waters every day. They know it is dangerous, but they have no other choice. The nightmare of sanitation exists not only in difficult areas but also in major cities, where you can find cooking stalls set up right next to sewage ditches. Vegetables are washed with water of uncertain cleanliness or contamination. Fish and meat are displayed for sale on the streets, even in the sweltering heat that can spoil them quickly. However, for many poor families, this remains the only source of food they can afford. Hospitals are always overwhelmed with patients. Diseases related to diarrhea, skin infections, and fevers caused by bacteria and parasites are constantly on the rise, especially among children. In many public hospitals, it is not uncommon to see 3 or 4 patients sharing a bed or lying on the floor. In some departments, the number of patients doubles the hospital's capacity, forcing doctors to prioritize the most severe cases, while others must wait in a state of inadequate medical supplies. Number 2. Death cuisine in Bangladesh. If you have a passion for exploring street food from various countries, Bangladesh will be the place where that passion culminates. Here, street food is not merely a snack. For millions of people, it is the only means to survive each day. In major cities like Dhaka and Chittagong, millions of dishes are cooked and sold right on the streets every day. It's not that people prefer eating out. Rather, many of them lack kitchens, refrigerators, or even space to cook. The food is prepared quickly to cater to a large number of workers at low prices. However, the most concerning issue here is the completely inadequate hygiene conditions. The water used for washing dishes, hands, or ingredients is often not clean. In many areas, vendors draw water from untreated public taps or even from ditches and sewers. This water can be contaminated with bacteria, heavy metals, or household waste. But when there are no other options, people have no choice but to use it. Food is often cooked right next to wastewater sites. You can easily find a pot of steaming food being prepared beside a drain with water as dark as thick coffee. Meat, fish, and fried snacks are sold outdoors, exposed to the sun for hours, swarmed by flies. There are no glass displays or refrigeration. Yet for millions of impoverished workers, having a hot meal, even with its risks, is better than having nothing to eat. In rural areas, the situation is even harsher. During the flood season or crop failures that drive food prices up, many families are forced to eat insects, snails, or other cheap food sources. Some eating habits also perplex outsiders. In certain regions, people consume raw liver or fresh blood, believing it provides strength and compensates for nutritional deficiencies. However, in terms of environmental protection and human health, these practices increase the risk of parasitic infections and communicable diseases. Symptoms like fever, skin infections, and gastrointestinal illnesses are common occurrences. Number 3. The true cost of the global fast fashion industry. Are you working a job that requires 14 hours a day, without protective gear, breathing in chemicals, and earning less than the price of a cup of coffee? If not, then you are very fortunate. In many factories in Bangladesh, workers earn only about $2–3 a day. In return, they must work 12–14-hour shifts, often with mandatory overtime and few days off. They even have to work in cramped, hot environments with poor ventilation. Many workers are directly exposed to toxic substances and fabric treatment chemicals without adequate protective gear. Masks, gloves, and fume extraction systems are not always available. Bangladesh is currently one of the largest clothing exporters in the world, second only to China. This industry accounts for over 80% of the country's total export revenue and provides millions of jobs. For global fashion brands, Bangladesh is attractive due to its extremely low labor costs. The majority of the workforce in this industry consists of young women, many of whom are under 25 years old. For them, factories may be one of the few paths to stable income in a country where job options are scarce. Bangladesh currently has over 4 million garment workers, becoming a crucial link in the global fashion supply chain. To serve major fashion brands, the consequences are so dire that many workers do not live beyond 50 years due to prolonged exposure to chemicals. Would you be afraid of getting your finger pierced by a sewing needle, tearing your skin, bleeding, things that many workers here consider occupational hazards? When injured, they are often taken to a small medical room, which sometimes has only one bed, a bottle of disinfectant, and a few bandages. After treating their wounds, they must return to work because they cannot afford to take time off. Pressure also comes from job performance. Each worker must complete a fixed number of products each day. If they fail to meet this quota, their wages are cut, or they are forced to work unpaid overtime to make up for the shortfall. With already low incomes, losing even a few dollars a day can directly impact their ability to afford food, housing, and basic living expenses. Not to mention the children. Imagine being 5 years old, and instead of playing with toys or learning to read, you have to work 10 hours a shift under the scorching sun. This is the reality for about 4.7 million children in Bangladesh, aged 5 to 14. They work in textile factories, handling hazardous chemicals, in brick kilns exposed to extreme temperatures, or as domestic helpers without any protection against abuse. They work more than adults, but earn only half of what adults make for the same jobs. The most vulnerable members of society are ruthlessly exploited. They should be in school, learning skills that could break their family's cycle of poverty. Instead, they are trapped in jobs that harm their health, stifle their development, and may condemn them to lifelong poverty. If you had to improve working conditions here, what would you do first? Choose 1 if you prioritize providing protective gear for workers, or 2 if you want to replace manual labor with modern machinery. Number 4. Pollution can be deadly. You can fast for weeks and go without water for days, but no one can stop breathing for more than a few minutes. Yet in Dhaka, every breath you take brings you closer to a death sentence. What you see here every day is not romantic fog, but fine PM 2.5 dust. This type of ultrafine particle can penetrate deep into the lungs and bloodstream. In Dhaka, the PM 2.5 levels are many times higher than safe limits for several days at a time. This is not just a peak occurrence, it is a prolonged situation lasting for many months of the year. Residents breathe polluted air from the moment they wake up until they go to sleep, both indoors and outdoors. The causes of pollution stem from multiple factors. Old vehicles make up a large portion of the traffic, many of which lack proper air filtration systems. Factories, textile mills, and brick kilns operate close to residential areas, yet emissions control is still limited. Additionally, open burning of waste remains common, especially in impoverished neighborhoods where there is no waste collection system. In winter, the situation worsens. The cold air combined with fog and dust creates a thick layer that envelops the city. In the mornings, people cannot see the house across the street. There are days when Dhaka ranks as the most polluted city on the planet, surpassing even massive urban centers like New Delhi, Beijing, and Lahore. The consequences go beyond mere discomfort. Health statistics show that more than 150,000 premature deaths in Bangladesh each year are directly linked to air pollution. Respiratory, cardiovascular diseases, and strokes occur at a very young age. Not to mention that the daily water supply they use is also severely polluted due to the textile factories that consume large amounts of water each day. Wastewater containing toxins, heavy metals, and chemicals used in fabric processing is often inadequately treated before being discharged into rivers. A prime example is the Buriganga River, which once served as a source of drinking water for the capital, Dhaka. Today, many sections of the river are pitch black, with a pungent chemical smell. Environmental studies show that the toxin levels in the water far exceed safe thresholds. The Buriganga is no longer suitable for drinking or fishing as it once was. This pollution also directly impacts the ecosystem. Over 60 species of freshwater fish in the area are reported to be threatened, with 9 species classified as critically endangered. Many species that were once a staple food source for local residents have now nearly disappeared. Number 5. When one wife is not enough. If you are a man in Bangladesh, it is quite possible that you have several wives living happily under one roof. In some remote areas of this country, particularly among the Mandi minority tribe, there exists a form of marriage that may be hard for outsiders to imagine: sharing a husband. In this culture, a man can live with multiple women who are closely related, often sisters or female relatives within the same family. This practice does not stem from pleasure or personal choice, but rather from the matriarchal social structure of the Mandi people. In this community, lineage, inheritance rights, and leadership positions are passed down through women. Women play a central role in maintaining lineage, property, and the survival of the tribe. Therefore, ensuring that every woman has a family and children is considered essential for them. In addition to cultural factors, this practice did not arise spontaneously. In many areas inhabited by the Mandi, the number of men is often lower than that of women. This is due to dangerous labor, long-term migration for work, or harsh living conditions. In this context, it is seen as a solution for a man to live with multiple women in the same family, ensuring that no woman has to live alone or remain childless, which is viewed as a disadvantage in traditional society. In this context, marriage in Bangladesh is largely arranged. The decision to marry is usually negotiated by the families of both parties, based on economic status, reputation, and social connections, rather than mutual affection. Although legally, the consent of both the bride and groom is required, they often cannot refuse due to heavy pressure from their families, especially women. In the past, when marrying, parents would often give a portion of their wealth to their daughter, referred to as a dowry, to demonstrate the bride's value. This pressure led many families to view daughters as a financial burden, and marrying them off early became a way to reduce the costs of raising them. In extreme cases, failing to meet dowry demands could result in domestic violence or mistreatment after marriage. Although it is now prohibited by law, it still quietly persists in many marriage agreements. Domestic violence is also a persistent issue. Despite its widespread occurrence, reporting it often does not provide protection. Instead, it can lead to stigma, ostracism, or being blamed. Many women choose to remain silent for fear of losing their standing in the family and community. Number 6. Gender determines the entirety of life. However, leaving the Mandi community, the broader picture of Bangladesh reveals a different reality, where gender can determine almost the entirety of a person's life. Despite improvements in recent decades, gender inequality remains stark, especially in rural areas. Here, investment in a son's education is often prioritized. Daughters are expected to help with household chores, care for younger siblings, cook, and prepare for their future roles as wives. When a family's finances are strained, daughters are often the first to drop out of school. Although the enrollment rate for girls in primary education has improved in recent years, the number of female students sharply declines at the secondary and tertiary levels. The reasons are not only financial but also stem from safety concerns, societal biases, and pressure to marry early. For many families, investing in a daughter's higher education is seen as unnecessary, and may even reduce her chances of finding a husband. The statistics alone are alarming. Approximately 51% of girls in Bangladesh marry before the age of 18, placing the country among those with the highest rates of child marriage in the world. Many even marry before completing their secondary education. In marriage, women's roles continue to be constrained by traditional norms. Although the law permits women to work, in many regions, they still need to seek permission from their husbands or their husbands' families to go out and work. Women's jobs are often concentrated in low-income sectors, lacking protective gear, and offering few opportunities for advancement. Even when contributing financially, decision-making power within the household predominantly rests with men. Moreover, the current legal system also exhibits a degree of gender bias. Inheritance laws based on Islamic Sharia, which apply to the majority of the population, stipulate that men inherit twice as much as women. This results in women, even when married, often being economically dependent on their husbands or their husbands' families, limiting their long-term autonomy. Even when women participate in the workforce, social norms in many areas impose barriers. Pursuing advanced education, working away from home, or achieving financial independence is often viewed as inappropriate, particularly in conservative communities. Pressure from family and public opinion forces many to abandon personal choices in order to preserve collective image and honor. Number 7. The strange beliefs of the Bangladeshi people. Imagine, amidst the hellish traffic jams of Dhaka, where the cacophony of thousands of honking horns and the throng of people jostling for space, everything suddenly comes to a halt because a cow is peacefully lying down in the middle of the road. No one dares to chase it away or complain, for here, the cow holds a sacred status. This creates one of the strangest contrasts you can find anywhere in the world. Although this is a predominantly Muslim country where eating beef is not religiously prohibited, there exists a minority Hindu community that reveres the cow as a representation of the divine. Over centuries, this reverence has transcended religious boundaries, gradually blending into the broader cultural life, especially in rural areas and the outskirts of cities. What is shocking here are the rituals associated with cows. For some Hindu communities, not only is the animal revered, but everything associated with it is also considered purifying. Cow urine and dung are seen as symbols of purity and spiritual protection. There are festivals where devotees bathe in fresh dung, believing it will cure ailments, bring blessings from the divine, and wash away sins. If you are in Bangladesh and fall ill, you don't necessarily have to go to a hospital. You simply need to consult spiritual healers. Here, there is a belief in spirits and invisible entities within Islam. In the Quran, they are mentioned as beings that exist parallel to humans, possessing their own will and emotions. In many impoverished areas, when someone suffers from a prolonged illness, psychological disturbances, or recurrent accidents, families often suspect they are being disturbed by these spirits. Before considering a hospital, the spiritual healer typically recites prayers and blows blessings into water, known as pura pani, which is then given to the patient to drink or bathe in, with the belief that evil spirits will be driven away. This belief is so strong that it creates many lifestyle rules, such as not wearing perfume at night because the scent might attract spirits, and not letting hair down under a banyan tree or a large tree, as these are seen as dwelling places for those entities. Another common belief is known as the evil eye. Bangladeshis believe that envious or excessive praise can bring misfortune, especially to young children. Therefore, many babies have a streak of black ink applied to their foreheads or cheeks. This serves as an amulet to deflect negative gazes. This belief extends not only to people but also to every object they own. On long-distance trucks, you will often see large painted eyes or old shoes hanging under the vehicle. Drivers believe these will absorb bad luck and prevent accidents on crowded and dangerous roads. Number 8. When breaking the law becomes the only way to survive. What would you do if you knew that calling the police after being robbed would only complicate matters further? In the major cities of Bangladesh, crime doesn't always stem from violence. For many here, it is simply a means of survival. As countless individuals flock to the city in search of work and a way out of poverty, the lack of available jobs forces some into choices that lead them to commit crimes. When you visit the markets in Dhaka, you'll see vendors tying money around their waists, while buyers hide their phones deep within layers of clothing. Everyone is aware of pickpocketing, so everyone learns to be cautious. At bus stations, organized groups of thieves operate with precision. One person bumps into you, another obscures your view, and just seconds later, your belongings are gone. Buses are the most common setting for such incidents. They are so crowded that you can hardly move, with doors opening slowly and people getting on and off in a chaotic mix. In such situations, you can't run or react. Many only realize their belongings are missing once they return home. Notably, most of these incidents go unreported to the police. It's not that people aren't upset, rather, they believe that reporting will be of no help and may even lead to more trouble. Gradually, theft becomes something everyone knows about, fears, but few can avoid. The greatest cost is not just financial, it's the constant feeling of being on edge. When out in public, riding a bus, you must always keep a tight grip on your belongings. Additionally, rickshaw drivers, porters at markets, and street vendors who want to maintain a stable position for their businesses are almost forced to pay protection money to local gangs. If they refuse, they face eviction, destruction of their goods, or even physical violence. There are no contracts or receipts, but everyone knows this unspoken rule exists. Some even resort to forging documents to secure jobs. Many impoverished individuals lack education and therefore do not possess diplomas or even complete birth certificates. To apply for work, they are compelled to purchase fake educational certificates just to qualify for positions as laborers, security guards, or helpers. Women often find themselves caught in what is referred to as soft crime. They engage in organized begging, sell counterfeit cosmetics and medicines, facilitate illegal labor, or act as marriage brokers. For many women who have not received a proper education, are restricted from going out, and lack personal assets, this is often the only remaining path to earn a living for their families. Number 9. Unique festivals in Bangladesh. This is why Bangladesh is home to some of the most crazy festivals on the planet. If you are afraid of crowds, fire, or chaotic gatherings, it's best to skip this part. Starting with Shakrane in Old Dhaka, a kite festival that marks the end of winter. But don't imagine a serene scene of kites soaring gently against a blue sky. Shakrane is a literal aerial battle. People crowd the low rooftops, standing just a few meters apart. Each kite has a string coated with glass powder to cut the strings of opponents. When a kite is severed, the entire neighborhood erupts in cheers as if a goal has been scored. Children dash across rooftops to claim fallen kites. The daytime chaos is just a warm-up. The real shock comes at night. As the sun sets, Old Dhaka transforms into a wild light festival. Young people breathe fire, set off fireworks from rooftops, and blast loud EDM music. In stark contrast to that chaos is Pohela Boishakh, the Bengali New Year. This is one of the few festivals in Bangladesh that transcends religious boundaries. Whether Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhist, everyone takes to the streets. The highlight is the Mangal Shobhajatra parade, where art students carry giant masks and effigies shaped like birds, fish, and monsters. These figures symbolize the expulsion of evil and new beginnings. Early that morning, people eat rice soaked overnight with fried hilsa fish. It may sound strange, but for them, it's a must-have flavor for the new year. If Pohela Boishakh represents cultural identity, then Bishwa Ijtema is a shock in scale. This is the second largest Islamic gathering in the world after the Hajj in Arabia. Millions flock to an open field by the river. The roads are jammed, and vehicles barely move. The most iconic sight is a train, completely covered with people. Some sit on the roof, others hang off the sides, clinging to any available space. It's a scene of utter chaos, but the locals are accustomed to it and consider it normal. Bangladesh also has festivals closely tied to water, notably Nuka Baich, the dragon boat race. The boats are long, ranging from 30 to 60 meters, carrying over 100 rowers. The oddest part is that in the middle of the boat, there's always someone who doesn't row. They simply stand, dance, sing, and beat a drum. This person acts like a conductor. Their singing keeps the rhythm for the entire boat. If the rhythm falters, the boat can easily veer off course. On both riverbanks, thousands of spectators crowd together, cheering loudly enough to drown out the sound of the water. Finally, there's Lalon Mela, a festival for the Bals, wandering artists who live outside societal norms. They believe that God is not in the heavens but within humanity. Dressed in orange robes with long hair tied up, they hold one-string instruments. They sing philosophical songs and dance until they enter a state believed to be transcendental. This is not just a performance, it resembles a spiritual ritual of a community. Number 10. Prolonged political instability and corruption. If you are wondering why Bangladesh faces so many issues simultaneously, seemingly without any deep reforms to address them at their roots, the answer lies in the very power structure of the country. Poverty, pollution, child labor, and crime do not exist in isolation. They are perpetuated and prolonged by a politically unstable environment that has persisted for decades. Bangladesh is dominated by an almost endless confrontation between the two major parties, the Awami League and the BNP. Instead of competing on policy, the two factions view each other as existential enemies. Each election is not an opportunity for change, but often becomes a time of tension, protests, violence, and repression. Recent general elections have been repeatedly accused of fraud, from voter suppression and ballot manipulation to the opposition being unable to participate fully. As trust in elections erodes, the people lose hope that anyone will rise up to grant them the rights they deserve. The press and social activists also operate in an increasingly constricted space. Journalists investigating corruption, child labor, or living conditions in slums often face legal pressure, threats, or arrest. Digital security laws are widely used to control online content, making criticism of the government a significant personal risk. Consequently, the darkest events are pushed into oblivion. This is why petty corruption persists more in everyday life. People have become accustomed to needing to grease the wheels to get paperwork done, avoid trouble, or gain protection. For the poor, access to justice is almost a luxury. A theft, an act of violence, or a workplace accident may never be thoroughly investigated without money or connections. This explains why many slums become lawless zones. It is not that the state is unaware, but rather that it incurs no cost to address those minor issues. These terrible conditions continue to exist because they do not directly threaten the ruling class, while they benefit certain intermediary groups and local gangs. Most importantly, political instability makes any long-term reforms nearly impossible to implement. Policies regarding education, health, the environment, or labor are often interrupted when power changes hands or exist only on paper. There is no consistency long enough to create real change in people's lives. Number 11. 40% of the capital lives in slums. What would it be like if we were the poorest people living in a big city? Right in the capital city of Bangladesh, home to over 20 million people, about 4 out of 10 individuals live in slums. Poverty here is a common state for a large segment of the population. These slums are often crammed along rivers, under bridges, next to train tracks, or tucked behind industrial areas. Homes are hastily constructed from tin, rotting wood, and plastic tarps. They lack access to clean water. Here, garbage, wastewater, and human waste blend together into a familiar stench, so pervasive that many residents no longer recognize it as something horrifying. The most frightening aspect is that the lives of the people here are not protected. Many die from fever, diarrhea, infections, or simply exhaustion, but there are no records, no documentation, and no one to keep track. Some pass away right in their cramped shacks, with neighbors only discovering it when the smell begins to rise. No one cares enough to intervene in time to save them. As night falls, the slums of Dhaka enter a completely different state. Many areas lack electricity, or only have a few dim lights flickering. In the darkness, you hear a cacophony of sounds blending together. Children crying from hunger or fever, prolonged coughing, rats scurrying on tin roofs, dogs barking, and people arguing. Despite the chaos, the residents have grown accustomed to this rhythm of life. In such an environment, violence becomes the norm. The law is almost non-existent here. Gangs control small territories, extorting money for protection from street vendors, porters, and rickshaw drivers. Cheap illegal trade seeps into slum life, leading to brawls over trivial matters, sometimes just over a cigarette or a sleeping spot. Police rarely venture deep into these areas, not because they are unaware, but because they cannot maintain control. Typically, law enforcement only appears when there is a murder, and even then, only for a brief time. For the majority of the time, residents must fend for themselves against all risks, from illness to violence. Number 12. Life on the water, when land cannot sustain it. If you lost your home to flooding once a year, what would you do? In Bangladesh, millions of people have learned to cope with water, even choosing to live with it for their entire lives. In the low-lying areas along the major rivers, floating markets serve as the economic hub. Boats carrying vegetables, fish, rice, cooking oil, and clothing gather from early morning. Sellers and buyers stand or sit on their boats, exchanging goods amidst the flowing water. For them, the river is the road, the square, and the marketplace of the entire community. Many families live entirely on boats. These are not large vessels, but long wooden canoes that provide enough space for a family of about 4 to sleep, cook, and store their belongings. Children grow up in this confined space, with some learning to swim and paddle a boat at a very young age, even before they learn to read. In many flood-prone areas, Bangladesh has established floating schools. These are large boats converted into classrooms, equipped with blackboards, desks, and teachers. When the water rises, the schools move along the river, anchoring near villages so that children can attend classes by small boats. Healthcare is also swept along with the current. In places without stable road access, floating clinics emerge as the only solution. Doctors and nurses travel by boat, carrying basic medicines, and provide medical care right on the water. Some births occur on boats because there isn't enough time to reach the shore. In the cramped, rocking space, providing medical care becomes a challenge. From this environment, some very unusual professions have developed. Some people specialize in repairing boats, building them right on the river. There are families who make a living by fishing at night, so they often sleep during the day. If you were one of the residents here, having a private space would be very difficult. Even family and marital life on the water can be quite inconvenient. Multiple generations live together on one boat, with no separate rooms for each person. Weddings also take place right on the river, with guests arriving by small boats. All activities, conflicts, and joys happen in the same space. Even if you experience heartbreak, you must cry and grieve in front of your entire family. Number 13. Creepy professions. If you think the most dangerous jobs in the world are miners or firefighters, then in Bangladesh, there are professions that are far more terrifying, not because they are rare, but because they exist quietly as part of daily life, created solely to help people survive another day. One of the most shocking professions is the collection and trade of human bones. It sounds like a fictional story, but this is a real black market in South Asia, with Bangladesh as a key link. Human bones are exhumed from unmarked graves or smuggled out of poorly managed morgues. They are then sold to intermediaries for various purposes, ranging from anatomical research, illegal crafts, to illicit fertilizers. What is frightening is not just that the dead are not allowed to rest in peace, but that this is the only way to earn money in a society with no other options. When poverty reaches a level where there is nothing left of value to sell, even death becomes a resource to be exploited. Another profession that is even more dangerous and exists openly is sewer diving. In Dhaka, you can encounter sanitation workers submerged in dark sewers without masks, oxygen tanks, or protective gear. Their job is to clear blockages, retrieve trash, dead animals, and waste that has accumulated over the years. The air in the sewers contains toxic gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide. Just inhaling them for a short time can cause dizziness, fainting, or immediate death. But for those in this profession, that risk is accepted as part of the job. They know the dangers, but they also know that if they don't go down into the sewer today, their families will have nothing to eat for dinner. Less frequently mentioned, but equally haunting, is the underground blood market. Due to a lack of healthcare and prolonged poverty, illegal blood trading exists in many areas. The poor go to black blood banks to sell their blood repeatedly, sometimes multiple times a month. They leave with a few coins in hand, but their bodies are exhausted, their skin pale, feeling dizzy and weak. They don't sell blood out of ignorance of the consequences. They sell it because it is the only thing left in their bodies that can be exchanged for money. For them, blood is a short-term commodity to buy rice, medicine, or pay off debts. What do you think is the ultimate boundary for humans when poverty leaves them with no other choices? Please share your thoughts with me. Number 14. The death loop at Monsoon. Do you think rain is something romantic and peaceful? In the monsoon season, the sound of rain hitting the tin roof serves as a death knell for all the people living there. Every year, the monsoon not only brings water from the sky but also carries with it a cycle of destruction that repeats across generations. Bangladesh is situated in a low-lying delta where three major rivers, the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna meet before flowing into the sea. When the monsoon arrives, the immense rainfall from the Himalayas combined with rising river waters causes widespread flooding. This is not an uncommon occurrence. Floods happen almost every year. In some years, more than 1/3 of the territory can be submerged at once. The first consequence is crop failure. With millions of farmers relying entirely on small rice and crop fields, just a few weeks of flooding can wipe out a year's worth of hard work. Rice that has not yet been harvested is submerged, livestock perish, and seeds are swept away by the currents. When the waters recede, the land is covered in mud and debris, making it impossible to plant immediately. A lost harvest leads to hunger for the entire year. Crop failure directly leads to debt. To survive, many families are forced to borrow money from landlords, traders, or informal lending groups at exorbitant interest rates. These debts do not disappear when the waters recede. They cling to the people through each season, forcing them to sell land, livestock, or send their children to work at a young age to repay the loans. When the land is no longer viable, the next step is migration. Hundreds of thousands of people leave their villages after floods each year, flocking to major cities like Dhaka in hopes of finding work. But the cities do not have enough space for everyone. They end up in slums, doing precarious jobs with unstable incomes, and living in conditions worse than those they left behind. When the rains come the following year, the cycle continues. Flooding also brings disease. The floodwaters carry feces, waste, and animal carcasses, contaminating drinking water sources. Diseases such as diarrhea, cholera, typhoid, and dengue fever surge after each flood. Children and the elderly are the most affected. Many families lose loved ones not to drowning but to illnesses that arise afterward. What makes this cycle particularly harsh is that it does not allow people time to recover. Just as they begin to recover from one flood season, they must prepare for the next. And this cycle is becoming increasingly dire. Climate change is causing monsoon rains to become erratic, with heavier downpours occurring in shorter periods, leading to faster and more severe flooding. Rising sea levels make it harder for water to drain into the sea, prolonging the inundation. Number 15. Transportation that defies all logic. If you think traffic jams are just a frustrating waste of time, then the traffic in Bangladesh will show you what an overloaded system truly feels like. In major cities like Dhaka, Chittagong, or Khulna, the streets are always congested. Old, battered, and dented buses jostle for space at every turn. What's shocking is not just the number of vehicles, but the sheer number of people crammed into them. You'll see passengers hanging onto the doors, clinging to the steps, and even sitting on the roofs of the buses. This is their only option to make it to work on time. Additionally, the familiar three-wheeled rickshaws have become a lifeline. They weave through narrow alleys, transporting people, goods, and even entire families. In a city where cars often sit idle for hours, this is the only way to navigate short distances. The sight of a thin man pulling a rickshaw under the scorching sun, carrying 2 or 3 people behind him, is not uncommon. It's a daily rhythm of life here. Distance and time here bear little relation to one another. A journey of just a few kilometers that might take 15 minutes in another country can easily take over 2 hours in Dhaka. Cars inch forward, horns blare, and black smoke fills the air. People don't ask, how long will it take? But rather, will we even get there today? As a result, accidents have become a common occurrence. Buses hit pedestrians, rickshaws get caught in the flow of larger vehicles, and people fall off as they cling to the outside. Many incidents go unreported and are not fully documented. They happen so frequently that society has become desensitized. Traffic here is no longer a safe space for anyone, and those are some facts you may not know about Bangladesh. I hope this journey has helped you see Bangladesh from a different perspective, more raw, yet much more authentic than what is often portrayed. If this video has provided you with a new viewpoint, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to keep following the stories behind the countries we think we know so well. Which detail in the video left the biggest impression on you? If you were born there, how do you think you would survive? Please leave your comments below. We would love to hear your true thoughts.